Next story I wanted to talk about is about a guy named Herschel Walker. He's running for, what is he running for? He's running for Senate against Raphael Warnock in Georgia. So I feel like it's important we talk about him because he's had some really interesting stuff to say recently about evolution. Completely misunderstands the entire premise behind it. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Before we do, I want to introduce you to him, tell you about who he is and what he did and how he got to where he is and all that stuff. There's this article on the Friendly Atheist website titled Franklin Graham Backs Herschel Walker's Senate Run Despite Wildly Violent Past. This is written on August 26, 2021 by Hemant Mehta. So it's a little bit older, but like I said, I'll give you an idea of who Herschel Walker is. Okay, let's read the article written by Hemant Mehta. I figured this is going to happen, but even I didn't expect evangelist Franklin Graham to do it this irresponsibly. Franklin Graham, by the way, is, as Hemant Mehta says, a televangelist, an evangelical. He's incredibly influential in that field, in that voting bloc. The things that he says, people listen. So his endorsement of Herschel Walker for his Congress bid is incredibly consequential. Back to the article. Yesterday, Graham effectively endorsed Herschel Walker, the former football star, as the next senator from Georgia. He's the likely Republican frontrunner challenging Senator Raphael Warnock. Graham obviously made sure everyone knew about Walker's faith. Here's what Franklin Graham said on Twitter. Heisman Trophy winner Herschel Walker is running again, but this time it's not as running back for the Georgia Bulldogs or the NFL. This time he's running for all the people of Georgia, announcing his desire to represent Georgia in the U.S. Senate. Herschel said, quote, "Our country is at a crossroads, and I can't sit on the sidelines anymore. America is the greatest country in the world, but too many politicians in Washington are afraid to say that," end quote. I agree, says Franklin Graham. I've encouraged Christians across this country to run for political office and make a difference, and I'm thankful that people like Herschel are doing just that. This tweet right here should tell you all you need to know about why it's important we get out there and get politically involved. If we aren't going out there and running for office, then somebody in Franklin Graham's ilk, somebody in Franklin Graham's political ideology is going to replace us there. We need somebody who is reasonable, who is not completely filled with insane Jesus obsession. We need somebody running for office to replace the ones who are completely out of their heads, hopped up on Jesus. And Franklin Graham really only endorses people who he believes will push the evangelical and extremist agenda, who will push the Christian agenda even further. Herschel Walker has made it perfectly clear, as we'll see in a second, that he has a vested interest in making sure that Christianity has more control over the country, over politics, than it does right now. This is back to the article with Hemant Mehta. Here's what Graham didn't mention, that Senator Warnock is also an outspoken Christian and the senior pastor at Ebenezer Baptist Church, where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once served in a similar role. But none of that seems to matter to Graham because Warnock is the wrong kind of Christian. That is, Warnock is inspired by his faith to help people and defend civil rights, while Graham's vision of Christianity involves mocking, hurting, and discriminating against others. This is an important point to drill home. My problem isn't with faith. My problem isn't with belief or any of that stuff. I don't care. You can be Christian. You can be whatever. That's perfectly fine with me. I have a problem with the tactics that these people employ, with the ideology that they use, with the manipulation tactics that they employ against people. Like, I'm okay with Raphael Warnock being religious and also being a senator. I don't care. Really, I don't. I would prefer someone closer to my moral opinions and my moral stands were in office rather than Raphael Warnock. But I'm really okay with him being in office, honestly, because I don't feel like his faith informs every political decision that he makes, like to an insane degree, like we see with somebody like Franklin Graham or Herschel Walker. It's the moral positions and the tactics that they use to accomplish their goals that are absolutely disgusting to me and act as a motivation for me to get out there and do anything I can to make sure that he doesn't get in office. Vote against him, start phone banking, donating against his campaign, donating to his competitor, whatever. Just do whatever it takes to make sure that he loses the election, basically. Let's keep reading. This is Hemant Mehta still. That Walker repeatedly threatened the life of his ex-wife long after he said he became a Christian and abandoned his violent tendencies. I'm not going to read it on YouTube, but needless to say, there was some really ugly stuff that he did long after claiming to have abandoned his violent tendencies. Really, really ugly stuff. If you're curious, just go look it up. Herschel Walker violent past or something like that. Matter of fact, you can just go to this article. Just search for it. You'll find it. Franklin Graham backs Herschel Walker's Senate run despite wildly violent past. It'll come right up for you if you want to read more about Herschel Walker's past. But that's not really the point of the story, ultimately. I just want to give you a little bit of background, give you an idea of who this guy is, and why we should be concerned that he very well could be the next senator of Georgia, replacing Raphael Warnock. This is an appearance at a church that he did, March 13th, 2022. I wanted to listen to this because it had some interesting stuff about his view of the world, about his understanding of the world around him. So check this out. On the right here is Herschel Walker. On the left is his host at the church. I believe he's the pastor of the church or something. Anyway, listen to this, March 13th, 2022. This is, for the record, a campaign event that he was doing. He's trying to campaign to win votes at a church.
You know, the first thing I want to say is we're all sinners.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah, I'm a sinner, and we all fall short of the glory of God. So we first got to admit that we are sinners, that we're not perfect. And we never will be perfect. But what you got to do is you got to always go after God's heart and know that Jesus lives within you, and know that you are going to have problems, but you got to keep moving forward. You got to keep moving forward, that life is okay. Because as long as you keep the faith, and one of the things, it's hard to keep the faith when you don't see him. You know, you don't see him there, right, or you can't feel him.
Maybe he's fake. Do you ever consider that one? I mean, you ever knock that one around the old noggin? Is there a possibility he's not real? He was never real? He's not there? It's all in your head? Just tossing it out there.
You don't hear him sometimes, but he's there. And let me tell you the reason he's there, because you remember when they said, let there be light, you know, there had to be light. So somebody had to store it, let there be light, because something had to be created here. Come on.
Okay, now we're getting into a complete misunderstanding of evolution and how it works. All right, let's step back and really pick this apart, really think about what this guy's saying, okay?
Somebody had to store it, let there be light, because something had to be created here. Come on.
Something had to be created here. Okay, let me just toss this one at you. What if a few billion years ago, the sun exploded and became, lit up through all kinds of plasma and particles all over the place, right? And there's an orbit that forms around the sun. And in that orbit are just particles, just dust. As it continues to kind of spiral around the sun's gravitational field, little by little, that dust starts kind of gathering, slamming into each other. Over time, that dust gets bigger and bigger and forms rocks, and those rocks form asteroids, and those asteroids bang into each other so many times, and they get so incredibly big that they form their own gravitational field, and now they're spinning around the sun. It's called the accretion disk, by the way. The cloud of dust that started circling the sun, the accretion disk. That's how light came to be, quote unquote. That is how everything formed. According to what we know about the universe, what we know about physics, geology, and all of the other scientific fields, that's what happened. We have hard evidence that this is how things formed. Now, you can sit there and tell me God did it. God made it happen. Fine. If that's what you want to say, okay. That's okay with me. But we have hard, irrefutable evidence that this is how it played out. Go ahead and fill in the parts we don't know with God, but you're going to be left with egg on your face when we finally manage to explain the parts that aren't filled right now. And you claimed that God fit there. Let's keep listening.
When the light was created here, that means somebody up there had to say, let there be light, that the earth started, and then he had to put someone there on earth. Because remember, Adam was there. Remember, Adam came there, then Eve came. So somebody had to create humans because humans are here. Adam and Eve is obviously a true story. Obviously, right? You'd be a fool not to think Adam and Eve is real. Well, if you obviously know that Adam and Eve are real, somebody must have put them there. Who put them there? If God didn't put them there, then who did? Adam and Eve is an allegory. It's fake, Herschel. It's not real. That is not how things played out. We know without a shadow of a doubt, we have DNA evidence to prove that humans have been on this planet for longer than 6,000 years. The 6,000 years that Christians or young earth creationists claim it's been. I'm really disappointed that this guy hasn't, he's throwing out arguments that are long debunked, ridiculous at their face. People in grade school know the answers to these questions, and he's throwing them out there like they're gotchas, like they're knockout punches. Science is wrong, and the reason is because Adam and Eve were here, so who put them there? Checkmate, atheists. And Eve came, so somebody had to start it out. So that means there had to be a God. Because it didn't just some bomb blew up and it started out. And then I'll tell you something else I heard.
It's not some bomb that started it, is that what he said? I assume he's talking about the Big Bang here.
Because it didn't just some bomb blew up and it started out. And then
Yeah, nobody said some bomb blew up, blah, blah, blah. We're talking about the Big Bang. The Big Bang is, as a matter of fact, verified. That actually did happen. Now, like I said a minute ago, you can say God made it happen. That's okay with me. Really, I'm fine with you saying that. But you can't deny the hard evidence that we have. You can't deny the facts that we have, which is what he's trying to do here. In a very juvenile way, not in an offensive way, just he obviously does not understand any of this. It's almost like the guy hasn't studied any of this, or he thinks that he's presenting these arguments for the first time, like we haven't heard these before. It gets worse. Keep listening.
Blew up and it started out. And then I'll tell you something else I heard. And I think about this, because at one time, science said man came from apes. Did it not?
It did not, no. It never said man came from apes. Humans share a common ancestor with apes. In fact, we are the fifth great ape. There are 5 great apes, one of which is humans. And that's true. That was true then. That's true now. That's just a fact. I know this is hard to understand for some people, so I'm not going to mock you. If this is really a question in your head, let me explain why. Let me explain why we are the 5th great ape and why that's not nonsense. Let's let him finish his statement here, and then I'll explain.
That's when you go to the science.
Every time I read or hear that, I think to myself, you just didn't read the same Bible I did.
Well, this was interesting, though. If that is true, why are there still apes?
So we have the English language, and we have the French language, right? And we're both very similar in form to the Latin language. If English came from Latin, then why is there another language that also came from Latin? It's effectively the exact same argument. Ask the atheist. English is a Germanic language, not a Romance language. I hold a BA in Spanish. English did not descend from Latin. Spanish, French, Italian, and Romanian all descended from Latin. Okay, I appreciate the correction. I'll put this in the final video. There's your answer from a linguist, a self-proclaimed linguist. I mean, I haven't seen the credentials or anything, but just... you get the idea. You get the idea that I was trying to communicate. Different languages, different accents, they all derive from a certain root. It doesn't mean that that root doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that it's fake because they have the same root. I'm just trying to give an idea of what people mean when they say humans came from apes. That's how it worked. The apes that we came from, quote unquote, are not the apes that exist today. French is not Latin. English is not Latin. They're extremely similar to each other, but they're not the same. They have the same roots. Latin as a language does still exist. It's still out there, and we base a lot of stuff off of it. It's a dead language, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong out there, linguists. I think it's a dead language because it's not regularly spoken by native speakers, and it's also not changing and evolving anymore, from my understanding. Like I said, correct me if I'm wrong out there, linguists. Humans and modern apes, modern monkeys, gorillas, so on and so forth, they came from the same parent line. That's why what he's saying is nonsensical. It's ridiculous at its face. Like, I get that this is a question that you would ask if you don't fully understand how all this works. And not understanding how this works is okay. It's fine. It's okay. You don't have to, like, feel bad about thinking that this is a legitimate question to ask. In fact, if you do, then ask it. And somebody will explain it to you, hopefully. But it's easily explained. This isn't a challenging question to tackle. We've known the answers to these types of questions for a long time, and I had them answered, the moment I started studying evolution, once I exited the religion that I grew up in.
Think about it.
Now you're getting too smart for us.
No. Think about this. We have an evolution we've gotten so intelligent that if that is true, why are there still apes? And then the conception of a baby. Let me tell you, science can't do that.
He's trying to give us like his knockdown arguments in favor of God. Adam and Eve existed here, so somebody must have created them. He's taking the premise that Adam and Eve existed in the first place and building on that. We all know Adam and Eve existed, thus God exists. I'm rejecting that premise. Adam and Eve didn't exist. There's no evidence of that. So that was his first argument. His second one is evolution is ridiculous because blah, blah, blah. And now his third argument is
the conception of a baby.
The conception of a baby. Okay.
Let me tell you, science can't do that. They're still trying to do it, but they can't because there had to be a God.
I don't understand. Creating new life. We can clone things. He's saying where science is trying to produce life. What happens when we do? What are you going to say then? Are you just going to remove that from your proof? From your list of proofs that God is real? This is called the God of the gaps. You're fitting God in everywhere that science hasn't explained yet. What happens when science explains it? You've suddenly made God that much smaller.
When God came and said, now, let me create this, and God created the earth, and he put Adam and Eve there and stuff, and then this what was so funny, this what makes it even better. Even in that little garden, he said, from this place, you got all the freedom, just like we got it in the United States. You got all the freedom, do whatever you want to do. But then he said, nah, don't mess with that tree over there, because you mess with that tree, you will surely die. So he had rules and regulations.
Isn't that interesting? He's comparing God putting a dangerous tree in the Garden of Eden to laws, rules, and regulations. Well, let me just toss this one your way. What about this, Herschel? Adam and Eve were supposedly perfect, right? Why would they need governance in the first place? In fact, why would God even put a tree near them that could even risk their perfection? Why would he do that? Why didn't he put it on the other side of the planet? Why did he decide to put it right in front of them and say, don't touch it? And how about this? Why would God not quarantine them when they did that? Put them off in the corner, say, you're not allowed to breed, give Adam a vasectomy, say, go do whatever you want for the next 80 years, and then create a new breeding pair who was perfect once again. Why did he decide to allow them to breed and create 8 billion humans who were imperfect and and God knew were going to suffer for the next 6,000 years? I'm just expanding on this lore a little bit to show you how absolutely ridiculous it is from the ground up. It doesn't make sense once you start poking holes in it. It doesn't make sense even a little bit. But he thinks he's got us in some kind of a gotcha moment here.
So you had rules and regulations.
And he's trying to prove to us that God had this divine plan, that he knew that humans were going to need to be governed over and all of this other stuff. If Adam and Eve were really perfect, as he claims, why would they even need rules and regulations? Why did God even need to put a tree in there in the first place? There's no need for it. It's sadism, plain and simple. And then even further sadism that he didn't just quarantine them. Every person that has suffered in the past 6,000 years, that suffering is on God's conscience, in my opinion, for not quarantining them and creating a new breeding pair. It's on God.
Just like we got in the United States of America. You got rules and regulations. And when you break the rules, you will surely die. Same thing we got here. If you don't do what's right, you surely go to jail or you need to be punished. Like I said, I got a spanking. And I said, that's the reason why I said, guys, this is a great country. This is a country where we all can have all different religions.
Okay, that's weird that he's saying that, because that's effectively completely contradictory to all of the other underlying ideology that he's laid out for us in the past, 2.5 minutes, that, we can live in a country that has more than one religion. It seems pretty obvious to me that what he's laying down here is a vested interest in having Christian supremacy. The fact that he was endorsed by Franklin Graham in the first place should be more than enough to tell you that he's part of a Christian supremacist movement. But okay, let's keep listening.
All can have all different religions. And I tell people this, I'm not trying to teach you to love Jesus. I love him. You can like who you want to like, but I'm going to tell you, there's only one of them.
I'm honestly surprised to hear him say that. Once again, everything else that he said up to now has basically been in contradiction to what he's saying right here. He's been spouting off just the strangest, not just in this video, but the things that he's said outside the video, the political ideologies that he adheres to, the people that have endorsed him, it all points to religious supremacy, Christian supremacy. So it's really weird and contradictory that he's saying that we can all, live in the country together, whether we're Christian or not.
You to love Jesus, I love him. You can like who you want to like, but I'm going to tell you, there's only one of them.
That's right.
There's only one God. There's only one Jesus. So if you're going with the wrong horse, I'm sorry for you. I'm telling you, I love Jesus. And I tell people this, guys, Jesus lives within me.
Amen.
And I can't do nothing without the power of Jesus.
Right.
We don't need politicians like this, guys. We don't need politicians who understand so little about science that they think the argument about apes is like a knockout punch. Like they won the argument. If we came from apes, then why are there still apes? He really just laid that out as an argument against evolution for us. We don't need this in Congress. We don't need people like this as senators. I figured we'd take a quick glance at his Ballotpedia article. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but ballotpedia.org/Herschel Walker. This website's awesome. It tells you all kinds of stuff about their campaign and when their primaries are and all that other stuff. Says the primary will occur on May 24th, 2022. The general election will occur November 8th, 2022. Additional general election candidates will be added here following the primary. So right now, it looks like George Litchfield is running against Herschel Walker in the primaries on the conservative side. And Raphael Warnock is the current senator. He's running against Tamara Johnson-Shealy on the Democratic side of the ticket. So I'm pretty confident that the Democratic ticket is going to be Raphael Warnock. If we get Herschel Walker running against Raphael Warnock, God, I don't know. Like I said earlier, the evangelical voters steer the Republican Party. I think that Herschel Walker may actually have a high chance of winning. He may be the next Republican senator. We should be taking this seriously. If you're in Georgia, get out there and vote. Crawl over broken glass to vote. Whatever it takes. We can't have somebody who fundamentally does not understand the very basics of science in Congress. We can't have somebody who accepts the endorsements of extremists like Franklin Graham in Congress. This is next level concerning stuff. If you're in Georgia, get out there and vote this primary. Nervardia, scientists created a microbe that divides completely synthetically, so that destroys his argument that scientists can't create life. It was only a matter of time. People like to fill in the gaps with God. They like to fill in the gaps that science has left open, that we haven't explained yet or haven't figured out yet. They like to say, it's God. What happens when those gaps are filled? God gets smaller and smaller. Don't try to fill gaps with God. It's a lost cause. It's a dead end, and you will likely lose your faith over it.